Welcome to the final Voices of Experience for this academic year. And thank you for joining us in this wonderful venue, which has a long and important ties to the University of Denver. I want to begin by thanking the sponsors of this year's Voices of Experience. Please join me in thanking our in-kind sponsors, the Denver Chamber of Commerce and Daniels College of Business Executive Education. Without the generous contribution from our financial sponsors, we would not be able to bring these incredible speakers to you. So please join me in recognizing our sponsor, U.S. Bank. And if Mark Herman is here, okay, Mark? All right, here comes Mark. I didn't see you back there. We want to really recognize Mark and his bank. Looking for you in the front row. I would now like to introduce to you Brent Chrite, the Dean of the Daniels College of Business. Brent is a visionary thinker who knows how to execute the ideas we need for commerce, business, entrepreneurship, international experience. We are so fortunate to have Dean Chrite at DU. So please help me welcome Dean Brent Chrite.
Good evening and welcome. I'm really just delighted to have you all here and to have this opportunity to welcome you and to be with you this evening. This is the culminating event of what's been a really pretty amazing couple of days here at our Executive Summit being held in downtown Denver. We've got an amazing panel and looking forward to a really interesting, stimulating discussion that will involve your questions at the end. And so thank you for taking your time out of what we know are really busy schedules to be with us. I'm going to introduce our guests one at a time. Then we'll get started in some conversation and have a dialogue, and then we will open it up to you, and so looking forward to your input. The first panelist I'd like to recognize is Mr. Jim Lentz, who is the Chief Executive Officer, North American Region, President and Chief Operating Officer of Toyota Motor North America Incorporated, and a Senior Managing Officer of the parent company, Toyota Motor Corporation, located in Japan. Most recently, Jim was President and Chief Executive Officer of Toyota Motor Sales, USA, and Senior Vice President of TMA. Jim previously held several executive positions, including Toyota Division Group Vice President and General Manager, where he oversaw all sales, logistics, and marketing activities for Toyota and Scion regional sales offices and distributors. Jim earned his bachelor's degree in marketing and economics and an MBA in finance at the University of Denver's Daniels College of Business. He's a member of the Executive Advisory Board and a dear friend of the college. Please join me in welcoming Jim Lentz. Appreciate it. Next, we have Mr. Rob Katz, CEO of Vail Resorts. So Rob is currently the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Vail Resorts. He has served as Chairman since 2009. He served as Lead Director from June 2003 until his appointment as Chief Executive Officer in February 2006. He has served on the Board of Directors of Vail Resorts since 1996 and has been involved in the company since 1991. Prior to becoming the Chief Executive Officer, Rob was associated with Apollo Management, LLP, a private equity investment firm since its founding in 1990. Rob currently serves on the Wharton Leadership Advisory Board and has previously served on numerous private, public, and non-profit boards. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Rob Katz. Rob. Finally, Mr. Gary Rozier, Senior Vice President for Ariel Investments. Gary joined the firm in 2006 and is responsible for institutional business development and client services with a special focus on registered investment advisors. Prior to joining Ariel, Gary spent more than 5 years with Ridex Investments. At Ridex, he held multiple positions in shareholder services and financial advisor sales before being promoted to regional vice president, where he oversaw product development and distribution across 9 states throughout the Midwest region. Gary is president of the board of directors of Chicago Run, a trustee for Francis Xavier Ward School, and serves on the investment committee of Cristo Rey Jesuit High School. Additionally, he's a former chairman of the board of trustees for Chicago State University and is a 2011 leadership creator for a Leadership Greater Chicago Fellow. Gary earned his BA in economics from the University of Maryland, where he served as captain of the rugby team. Before I introduce Gary, you need to know that we had a third panelist who a couple of weeks ago indicated that she had to back out, and these things happen, and we get it. And, you know, we were kind of stressing about what to do, have a two-person panel, which doesn't really seem like a panel. Or I could join the panel, but I didn't really want to do that. And so I called Gary. I met Gary just a few months ago, and I called him. He was in Miami with his family on vacation, and I was just, look, I know it's late, and I really have no right to ask this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Is there any way we could get you here? And he got on a plane after some really important early meetings, arrived here at about 4:30 from Chicago, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate you. Please join me in welcoming Gary Rozier, Senior Vice President of Ariel Investments. Thank you. So I let the panel know we're going to have a discussion. There are lots of questions that we had sort of bandied around. But the first thing that I wanted them to reflect upon and share with you all is what I refer to as so what keeps you up at night question. And this is really about the myriad of disruptive forces and competitive pressures and the profound, near catastrophic level of changes in the economic marketplace and how they affect your particular enterprise, as well as how you go about leading your areas. And so we're going to ask you to give maybe a little bit longer answer to this one and just sort of give us a sense of yourself and how you think about this in your particular roles. And if it's okay, we'll start with you, Jim.
Sure, thank you. First off, congratulations to the University of Denver for winning the NCAA hockey. Had to start with that part. So when I look at kind of the challenges that we see today at Toyota, it's really in 3 big buckets. The first bucket is we are in the process, the final stages of moving our companies to Dallas, Texas. The physical facilities, about a 2 million square foot project on 100 acres. And we are moving 4 affiliated companies together for the first time. So we have a sales company and a finance company out of California. We have an engineering company out of Kentucky, and our corporate offices out of New York. So we're not only relocating, but we are also at the same time realigning the entire organization. Each of those groups had their own accounting group, a finance group, HR group, PR groups. Those are all now streamlined into one. So the challenge in a very short period of time of aligning 29 functions, getting the facility ready, and probably the longer term piece, and that's from a cultural standpoint, getting a sales culture and a manufacturing culture to work together. A little bit more difficult than I thought. The second piece is really today's business, dealing with this huge shift from demand of customers from passenger cars to light trucks, mainly as a result of low gas prices. Figuring out how we do that. at the same time that we're investing $10 billion in the next 5 years to modernize every single one of our plants in the U.S. And at the same time, taking a look at regulation and what changes will take place, whether it's CAFE regulation, the average mile per gallon a car has to get, or what happens with tax reform if a border tax comes in play, which is a significant impact not only to us, but to our industry. And then probably that third bucket is really the future. How do we allocate the resources necessary to develop autonomous self-driving cars? How do we develop the resources necessary to understand where we're going to play in the shared car or the shared ride business down the road? And the final piece is how do we affect the resources for a hydrogen society? Because we firmly believe that hydrogen is going to be the future fuel that powers vehicles. We already have a passenger car on sale in California and 9 eastern states. But last week we announced a proof of concept of an 18-wheel vehicle that basically runs on 2 fuel stacks from our passenger car. And it will be able to haul cargo from ports to railheads and eliminate all particulate from diesels. Basically, the only emission is water vapor. And the hydrogen will be produced at a plant that we will use a process using solar energy and water to produce it. So these will be 100% green vehicles, replacing old diesels. We think there is a tremendous need for this, not only in this country, but around the world. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thanks very much, Jim. Appreciate it. That's a lot to stay up thinking about.
Exactly.
Rob.
Yeah, this week?
Not very often.
Right. Rob.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks so much,
Thank
and
you.
really an honor to be part of the panel. Luckily, it's now 3 people. Otherwise, it would have just been you and I. I would say what keeps me up at night is people, talent. I think, I'd say if you asked me that question 6 to 7 years ago, it was about guests and consumers, and how do we bring more guests and consumers to our resorts. But today, it's really about people who work at our company. As the economy has gotten stronger, as unemployment has come down, people have more choices with where they want to work, and finding those people, not just having kind of a body to service a guest, but actually finding people who are truly passionate, who are willing to go above and beyond. That has become a huge challenge for our company. Obviously, our resorts, we now have 14 resorts. We have, including seasonal workers, close to 33,000 employees. And so each year of that, about 5,000 to 6,000 is our year-round, full-time year-round staff. And then we are hiring every year this huge number of people, about 50% of whom are actually new to the resort or new to our company, just graduating from high school, just graduating from college. While we provide an amazing experience, it has become more difficult to find people to actually come to our resorts. But then beyond that, it's actually finding the leaders of tomorrow. How do we make sure that the people we're bringing into our company are those who will actually progress with the company, will stay with the company, ensuring that we have the right retention. And so our focus is really right now all about development. How do we develop leaders, not only at the most senior levels of our company, but the lift operator, the person who's bussing a table? How do we get that person to really feel the inspiration to try and go another step in their career? Those are the people that will ultimately stay with our company and ensure that 5 years from now and 10 years from now, we'll be able to still provide this very high level guest experience that's core to everything that our company stands for. And I would say this what keeps me up at night is, and I think people ask about what could get in the way of our company's continued growth and financial performance, and it is that we will lose touch with how we attract workers to our company. And we're moving right now, just at the beginning, to say it's not just about using analytics and data and personalized, targeted efforts for our consumers. We have to actually do the exact same thing for our employees. We have to go out and figure out who we need to come, who's most likely to come, how do you motivate each individual person. And this, for our company especially, we have plans right now are in Australia and Canada, but we have plans to be in Europe, be in Asia. No way that we can be successful without solving this talent challenge that I think is out there for many companies.
Thank you, Rob. Gary, same question.
Thanks for having me. First and foremost, it's a pleasure to be here. I had no sort of worries that I could get here. You were worried, but I wasn't worried.
I was worried.
I have plenty of confidence that those things work out. And then to my panelists, I appreciate the opportunity to be up here with you. I feel somewhat underaccomplished when you sit next to the CEO of Vail and the CEO of Toyota North America. But I'll do my best to hold my own weight. What I'll say is what keeps me up at night, what I worry about the most, what we worry about the most at Ariel, is a term we call short-termism. And I'll circle back to what that means and why it keeps us up at night in a second. But by way of background, for those that don't know Ariel, we're an investment manager, boutique firm based in Chicago, been around 33 years, and started by a gentleman by the name of John Rogers, who was the first African-American to start a mutual fund company in the country. So very proud of that history. And the fact that we're still here today doing what we're doing, we're very proud of. Job one for us as an investment manager is to provide returns for our shareholders and clients. That'll never change. That's always going to be the most important thing that we do. So we lead with that. That's the most important thing for us. And why short-termism worries us is because short-termism has brought about something that we think is a long game has become very short. And a lot of that is because the information flow that has become prevalent in all of our lives. And at Ariel, we think most information is noise, and our job is to block out the noise and focus on what actually matters. And you'd be shocked with all the information out there, how little really matters. And our investment decisions really come down to a couple things. And we try to block out that noise. So what keeps me up at night is the fact that we have these 24-hour news cycles, which are great in some ways, but in other ways, they really cloud the true issue at hand. And for us, again, it's, our job is to provide returns for our shareholders. We don't have the luxury to be clouded by this information flow. The short-termism, I think, is really a scary thing because what happens is people focus on the most shortest part of what they can see. And again, we play a long game. Most of our clients are in the retirement business, be it pension plans or defined contribution plans. We had the pleasure of working for Toyota for some years. And if you think about it, you don't retire next quarter. Most cases you retire 30 years out. So as we think about investing and doing what's right for our shareholders, we've got to do that with that long-term lens and look beyond the horizon, but everybody wants to focus on what's happening next quarter. It's hard for us, and we see clients, quarter to quarter, and they say, what happened last quarter? Yeah, not a whole lot. And they said, what do you mean, Gary? You guys buy stocks for us. What happened? Well, the companies that we buy are great businesses long-term. We made that decision a long time ago. We have to let it play out. So patience for us is a big theme. We have a turtle as a mascot. If you saw the logo, we have a turtle as a mascot for a reason. On Wall Street, you've got bulls and bears and lions and tigers, and we have a turtle as a mascot, And the idea is we wanted to be provocative, that we're going to be patient, thoughtful, and methodical about how we handle our clients' assets. So this short-termism is what keeps us up at night.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I wanted to sort of get to some, ask about your sort of leadership styles a little later on, but as I was reflecting on what you were saying, I was thinking about, so what does it take to sort of guide an organization through sort of undulating sort of terrain in a different kind of marketplace? And as a dean of a business school, we try to think sort of reasonably deeply about sort of leadership, and you're either chief executives or individuals with huge portfolios. I have the pleasure of watching and learning from and working with Rebecca as she navigates this university at an enormously critical time in its history through really different space with deafness and sensitivity. And so for you, as you think about your style, transformational, transactional, situational leadership, servant-based, Rob, give us a sense of what you display and what your stakeholders, and in particular your employees, would say about that style.
Yeah, what do I think they would say, or what they would
you
actually say?
Versus what you want them to say about that style.
Yeah, I think, I'll say two things. One is, I think in today's environment, and I think that the short-termism, it is this information flow, the transparency, that I think as a leader, you have to be agile. And so I think the ability to take in information, be able to sort through it quickly, understand whether it means something or not, and this could be market information, but this could also be information about your own people, how they're performing. Companies that get stuck in their ways in this environment, I think, really get left behind, make mistakes that are all over the front page of the newspapers, particularly if you're in a consumer business. And so I feel like one of the most important leadership qualities that we look for anytime we're interviewing people at any level is agility. Is their willingness to continue to learn, to change, to not get stuck in some fixed belief that when the world changes around them, and again, that could be, again, the market, or it could be the team they're working on, right? They get a new boss, they get a new peer. If that's going to throw somebody, that's probably not the right person for us. I think, yeah, my leadership style is a bit kind of candor. I tend to lead with. I kind of I feel like, I want people to tell me the truth, and I feel like, my job is to then do in kind and tell people what they need to know and not sugarcoat. That's true with our board, with our investors, making sure that, if there's something that's going wrong, you're out there first owning it. And I think that can go along with that servant leadership that you talked about, which is helping people, in their leadership progression, in their development, really is one of the best things you can do for them. Sometimes not easy. Sometimes it's, it's challenging to give somebody a tough piece of feedback, but that could be the unlock for them and their rest of their career. And so it's what we try and kind of pride ourselves on within the company. And getting the leaders for that, as I talked about earlier, that's a challenge.
Right. No, that's great. Thank you.
You know,
Jim.
We've been through a number of crises in the last 4 or 5 years. And I think that's kind of the new norm. That goes with being short term. And to me, a leader has to be very calm. You have to be very collected in your thoughts. You have to make sure that your team doesn't see you sweat, because you may be churning inside, but you definitely don't want your team to sense that on the outside.
Right.
I think you have to understand that, I've been in this business almost 40 years, and leadership styles have changed a lot. The days of the iron-fisted leader are gone. You and I may have put up with that because that's just the way we were. The students in this room will not. They never will. And as a leader, you have to realize that. You have to understand the difference between managing projects and leading people. There's a huge difference in doing that. And you have to make sure that you slow down and take time. You've got to make sure that people understand not just what you expect them to do, but why it's important. Everyone that comes into our company wants to add value. But you've got to make sure they understand what it is they're doing. And if you do, the product that you get out will be 10 times better than what I ever may have produced when I was told, get this report done by 5 o'clock. It's totally different.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Gary.
I'm a firm believer in the more things change, the more things stay the same. I mean, I am. I have a turtle as a mascot, And I think what hasn't changed is the basics. I think what hasn't changed is following the data. I think what has changed is your delivery, of leadership. I think today it's less about, dictatorship. It's more about collaboration. And you're doing the same things as a leader, but your delivery of how you lead is different. And, I'm in the mid-stage of my career, a bit on the younger side. So I think I was on the tail end of having leaders that had that sort of, dictatorship style. So I know what that's like. And my peers are much more collaborative leaders. And I think it's become extremely effective, because at a point in time, you have to lead with what's there. And but I still think, like I said, the more things change, the more they stay the same. If you think about if I can make an analogy, you think about a cowboy and a herd. The herd's in disarray; it's always moving around. It's they're all over the place. But the cowboy on his horse is always steady. And I think that's what a leader should always be. So no matter what the changes around you, you've got to be the steady. What you change is your delivery. But the basics are the same. How you win doesn't change that much. A lot of it's the same. It's just in how you deliver it. So it's less dictatorship, it's more collaboration.
That's great. Thank you. So the University of Denver, like all universities, and certainly the Daniels College is, among other things, we're in the human capital development business, and I would suggest that one of the more enduring areas of competitive advantage for organizations around the world is the quality of their workforce. And Jim, give us a sense of how you think about that workforce, that really critical asset, the skills, the sort of the most salient attributes. More importantly, how do you retain them after investing so much in them, and how do you and your leadership team think about that?
Well, it's a challenge, and I think it's definitely changed in the last 5 or 10 years. One of the catalysts for moving our company to a new location was we were working out of a 35-year-old facility. It was a nice old facility, but collaborative spaces, we call them conference rooms. And that was maybe 10% of our building. 90% of the building was traditional office space. You were in a cubicle or an office. So today, the work environment is critical to be able to retain people. So the new complex we're in is about 50-50. And it's not just conference rooms, it's just any area where you can get people to collaborate and innovate. So I think that physical environment that people are in today are really, really critical to attract and retain. In terms of what we look for, we look for people that are flexible, that are open-minded, that have a broad base of interest. Because we are a company, we have some functions that are technical in nature. If you're in the accounting department, you've gone to an accounting school. If you're in product planning, you're likely an engineer. But for the most part, the vast majority of our functions, they are people that we move around 3 to 4 years, and they are generalists. So what I need to do is I need to try and build as broad a base as I possibly can and let people grow from within the company. And that's why our attrition rate today is 2 to 3%. Has been for years and years and years, because we have this core value system within the company that is based on respect, and it's based on Kaizen, or constant improvement. And as a result, we always keep people moving around, keep them engaged, keep them excited. And it's been a great ride.
Is there a risk of with that? That's extraordinary low turnover. Is there a risk of institutional sort of insularity?
There is.
And how do you?
There is. I would say 2 to 3% is a little bit low. And as we make this move to Dallas, 75% of our team is coming. That's great news. Usually a large corporation moving across state lines loses 75%. We're retaining 75%. But at that, I'm hiring over 1,000 new people. And I think that's a great thing, actually, because it's going to allow us, as we create this new culture based on the DNA of our core values, those won't change. But that culture is going to morph as I bring in new people, new ideas from the outside, as I bring in this manufacturing sales culture, that we will attempt to try to keep the best of those cultures together and try to get rid of some of the things that, frankly, have kept us from moving fast enough. We are known as the turtle of the auto industry. Maybe a hair slower. And speed of decision making is critical in today's business. It keeps things very consistent, but today we have to move faster. And bringing in fresh new ideas will be part of that.
Yeah, thanks very much. I know this is something that you all think about at Vail Resorts a lot. Give us a sense of how you sort of manage this workforce development issue.
Absolutely. Well, I think I should start by saying, so the turtle is not our mascot. I feel a little bit out of place. But no, I think, our company has grown quite a bit. So, we had probably 8,000 employees, 8 or 9 years ago to 33,000 employees. Our market caps, has quadrupled. So the environment there is one where, we are constantly asking more and more of our people. They have more responsibility. If whether you were running a resort that now has gotten bigger, or you're part of HR or accounting or finance, where all of a sudden the scope has expanded. And so we have kind of a two-pronged approach to try and keep people in the company. One is to really have people feel like we care about their careers, including if they want to leave. And so, right, our company's not huge, and so it's certainly possible that as we develop people and as they move along in their career, that all of a sudden their next step, we may not have that role for them. And we want our people to feel like it's perfectly okay, especially in this market, down in Denver where there's so much happening. If you want to go somewhere else, great. All we ask is that while you're at our company, you're going to give it your absolute best and have the best impact you possibly can make for us. The other piece I'd say, the other side of that is their boss. And what you find is that most people, there's certainly money plays a factor when people leave one company to go to another. But somebody's boss has a huge component of how they feel at work, how motivated they feel, how happy they feel. I think there's a lot of studies that show somebody's boss can have an impact not only on that employee, but their whole family, right? How they come home at night. And so we feel like it's our job to be a company where everyone's a great boss, which sounds simple, but means that instead of focusing only on these company pronouncements or policies, introducing new benefits here or there, it's actually focusing on making sure that our leaders are great bosses. And if they're not being great bosses, making sure that they get the help to actually become a great boss, and if they're really not a great boss, making sure we find somebody who will be a good boss. Because sometimes a lot of times if you have to make a change, let's say, with somebody who maybe not doing a great job, very often we focus on that person and the impact on that person. But there are usually 10, 20, 100, 1,000 people under that person, all of whose lives are kind of swaying with a leader who may not be doing the best. And so in our minds, it's critical for everyone who works at our company to be the kind of boss that when you go home at night and talk to your family and friends, you're singing their praises. Not just because they're nice to you, but because you think they really care about your future. So that's a big component of how we see retention.
Gary, give us a sense of the scale, the size of Ariel Investment.
So boutique firm, 100 people, but we manage $12 billion, so we're considered a mid-size investment firm. So, as it pertains to workforce, we're not going to have 1,000 hires. We have far less in a year. We may have 10, 15, and we think about them, as if they're monumental moves because of that reason.
Each one matters.
Yeah, Jim, they all matter. Yeah. But in that situation, we think about them as if it's a monumental move. There's really two things that we consider when it comes to workforce and why it matters at Ariel, and it's the first is diversity, the second is domain knowledge, and diversity on its head. I think we all kind of know what that means, and there's traditional definitions of diversity in terms of race and sex and orientation and all those things. For us, it comes down to two questions: is everybody in the room? Does everybody have a voice? That's what we think of as diversity, and the reason why is because we will make better decisions if everyone's in the room and everyone has a voice. So as we think about our workforce, we don't have quotas in terms of what looks good. We happen to be, the United Nations inside Ariel, but that's because we think we get better decisions with the United Nations inside Ariel. Right. And the other is domain knowledge. We want people that have a body of work. We work in the measurement business, not the investment business, because we get measured every single day. So you can open the paper and see how well Ariel did or didn't do every day. So we can't snowball these things. We can't walk around these things. We have to have domain knowledge when we make investments and know exactly what we're doing. So we want people that have that. And that's the most important thing because, again, that directly translates into, did we add value to our shareholders? So those are the main things we think about with workforce, and that's exactly how we bring people in. Now, this creates a challenge because it's hard to hire that way. Culture's like out front for us. We will often hire or not hire somebody because of the fit culture-wise. It's difficult when you say, well, let's go find a great international portfolio manager. There's a lot of them in the world. But the question is, do they fit inside 2,900, Aon Center? So those are the things that we think about, and that's exactly how we hire and retain talent.
But it's interesting, your comment about inclusion, because that is the most critical part, that everybody feels that it's safe to speak up. Because I think what we probably all have in common is we're really good decision makers. And it's easy to make a decision if you have one option. That's the option. But it's probably not a very good decision. But if you've got a workforce, if you've got your team that's willing to come up with these diverse ideas and options, chances are we're going to find the best solution within that. And that's why it's really critical. That's a good point.
I love the term that you brought in, inclusion, because they get interchanged and it's not the same thing. There's diversity and then there's inclusion.
Yep.
That's why I said, is everyone in the room? Hence diversity. Do they have a voice? Hence inclusion.
Yep.
Right.
And those are two different things. And we want both.
Yep.
Because they will translate to better decisions.
That's,
Very much.
it's a really great point. I appreciate it. Let me keep this on a sort of similar topic and keep it with you, Gary, and ask Rob and Jim to respond to it after this. Jim had mentioned issue, at least tangentially, associated with sort of institutional culture and in far-flung, huge organizations, maintaining culture, particularly in high-context cultural environments, is difficult. One could argue that an organization that has 100 people, it's a little easier to maintain a culture, although I would suggest that's not the case. And so give us a sense of how you all, with the focus on growth and development and understanding market trends and maintaining the capacity to be both sufficiently robust and nimble enough to pivot, how do you maintain that culture that is clearly an Ariel pretty compelling source of advantage?
I think that, first and foremost is we're unapologetic about our culture. So, we don't apologize for what it is, and we make sure that that's clear up front, and we try to hire people that buy into it right away. It does not mean that we won't have troubles or disagreement or dissent along the way, but you'll eliminate, much of your issues if you do that up front. I think a lot of people are afraid to kind of stand out and say who they are as a culture, because you're afraid of how you may offend somebody. We're not that way. We believe strongly that our culture is what drives our investment results. They sometimes get taken apart, but we do think that because we are diverse and inclusive, we care about serving our clients, but also the communities that we work within. We put that out front, and it's kind of like risk management. People always say, well, we manage risk very well. We think of risk management as not letting it in the first place. That's the best way to manage risk. So we think of culture is the exact same way. So we try to do as much work on the front end as we possibly can.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that. I think culture is about, there's a brand to culture, just like a consumer brand. And I think one of the most important things about a consumer brand is that you're not going to try and be everything to everybody. It's one of the biggest issues, I think, in business in general, on the consumer side, or the marketing side. People feel like, well, they don't want to pigeonhole themselves, and so they try and do too many things, and then they're not great at anything. And I do think the internal culture is exactly that, which is you have to know what you stand for, and a lot of times that's what you don't stand for. And there's a lot of, when you're trying to focus, when you're trying to, convince somebody to come and work at your company, sometimes, you get a little, if you see somebody that's great, you try and sell them. And all of a sudden now you're kind of trying to convince them that whatever they want is actually something that you're willing to give. And I think that's where people get into trouble. And so for our company, very much the same. We're really clear about what it means to work at Vail Resorts. One of the things we tell people is that if you come work at our company, it's a company where we really focus on you as a person. And everyone always smiles, when I say that, or anyone says, oh, that's fabulous. I'd love to work at a place like that. And then I'm always like, until we actually focus on you as a person, right? When we're actually focused on you, then actually the concept, right, kind of filters away, and all of a sudden people say, oh, whoa, like really? But we tell people up front, hey, when you come here, we're really gonna, we're not gonna let you sit in a corner and just get your job done. We are going to constantly be, that constant improvement. We're always gonna be looking to not only have you perform better and your financial results and operating results and all the other metrics that we have, but also you as a leader. And so, if you're coming to work here, it's, you've got two jobs, delivering the results and constantly improving as a person. But I do think the no apologizing for what you stand for is the only way to maintain that culture.
And I would say, in our case, this is a global company of 300,000 people. And the culture in Japan or the culture in Europe or in the US may vary slightly. What is constant is that core DNA of what the company stands for. That concept of respect, that we're always challenging each other, that we have this mindset of Kaizen, that we never believe that anything can't be made better. Everything works around that. But, because culture is really what happens when no one's looking. When the boss isn't looking, what happens in the organization? That's what your culture really is. And we can't create it. I can create policies, I can reward behaviors to try to keep everybody inside the boundary lines. But it's really up to my 40,000 people in North America and how they work together that really creates that culture. We've had this very, very strong culture. There was a very strong sales culture, which is different than the manufacturing culture. They measure things differently. They look things through a different lens. They still have that core value in mind. So we're going through this challenge today of how do we create this new culture with everyone on the same campus for the first time and throw in 1,000 people that have never been with the company at the same time. So that has probably been our biggest focus with this relocation, is making sure people understand what is this culture we want to have. How do we want to treat our customers? How do we want to treat the people within the organization? And it's been fun. People get energized by being part of it.
That's great. Gary mentioned a little while ago the notion of risk, which I thought was fascinating, that just don't let it in. The organization, look, enterprises for decades have managed with varying levels of success notions of financial risk. When we think about risk now and risk mitigation and risk management, it's often more sort of at the enterprise level. I mean, there are at governance areas, there are audit committees sort of diverging into risk committees and separating activities and thinking about operating risk and revenue management risk. And give us a sense of how, again, especially in a far-flung, highly distributed global environment, Toyota manages and mitigates the kind of risk that is not necessarily associated with the financial stuff.
I think the biggest part of it is we have a secretariat for risk management, but their job is not to manage risk. The responsibility of managing risk is driven down into each and every one of the functions. And it's beyond, much beyond, the financial risk, all the Sarbanes-Oxley stuff. Obviously we've got audit committees that everyone want to do that. But to me, the biggest risk today is really on the operations side. Is everyone following the processes that we believe are necessary to get things done? And to me, the best way to do that is to visualize it. So, we have 1 million charts and diagrams and everything else so that we know exactly what the process is within finance to pull the financial statement, within sales to place a production order. So all of that has been kind of institutionalized so we can manage risk in that way. But it's really up to each and every department. And to me, I'd mentioned the most critical part of risk management is how to visualize. And I'll give you probably the best example. A few years back when we had this big tsunami in Japan, it devastated our supply chain. And it devastated the supply chain. At one point in time, we thought that globally we would be out of production for one entire year. And we had to figure out, how do we rebuild the supply chain? And we were able to do that. But then we took a step back and say, how do we let this risk in? How did this happen that we could lose our entire supply chain from one event located in one part of Japan? So we decided to visualize. So in the automobile business and many other businesses, there are a number of tiers of suppliers. So a supplier may supply us with a radiator, but all the component parts that go into that are tier 2 or 3 or 4 or tier 5 supplier. You get all the way down to the guy that makes the nuts and screws. And we knew exactly where all of our tier 1s were. but we had no clue who the 4s and 5s were. And when we created a program and visualized that, we found that there was a supplier in Sendai, Japan, that supplied every single one of our tier 1s silicon wafers. And that was about to put us out of business. So today, we have a program where I know all the way through tier 5 where they're located, so that I can tell, are they near earthquake faults? Are they near political hotspots in the world? So I can make sure I spread my risk on where all these tiers of suppliers are, so it never happens again. So you're right. The key to risk management is find a way not to let it happen.
Appreciate that. How about you, Rob?
Yeah, I think, probably the risk that keeps me up at night, other than talent, is certainly data security. I think that as a consumer business, as one that has really put a lot of time and effort into collecting and being more sophisticated and more analytical about what we know about our consumers, obviously any kind of breach on that front, which we've seen at some other companies, is something that certainly we're concerned about and we focus on quite a bit. But in an odd way, I think the risk that we probably spend more time on is how to train our leaders to manage risk, and our employees to manage risk. And so, we're again a consumer-facing business, very distributed, and you might think, well, that means your risk is lower, right? That at any one particular point, kind of to what you were saying, like, well, we have operations everywhere, so if something goes wrong in one place, well, it's not such a huge deal. But I would say that's probably something that United Airlines thought about their customer interactions, right, on any one particular airplane. And the truth is, although we could talk about how it was handled, but the incident itself is interesting in that there was probably, right, a focus on preventing risk by having very strict guidelines on what people are supposed to do when an incident happens. But on the other side, and I think one of the things that we try and do in our company is to empower, right, our employees all the way down to a lift operator to make a good decision. So it may be, even if we've told you this is the normal procedure, if you see a situation that doesn't seem to fit that, like actually lead and make a different decision. And part of that is we had somebody who would always describe this as kind of the glass balls and the rubber balls. It's like you can let the rubber balls drop and you gotta make sure the glass balls don't. But giving people the power, right, to and training them to understand that. And so when they're having, either it's a guest interaction, an employee interaction, or making a business decision, as we get more far-flung kind of in the scope of our company, we need people who are empowered, who feel comfortable, and we feel they can make that right decision in the moment sometimes. And so that's where a lot of our time is going right now.
Thanks. Here?
We consider all risks as an investment manager. I mean, that's really our job. That's what we get paid to do. There are few that, really matter that we spend a lot of time on. The first being reputational risk. You have to think people entrust us with billions of their, pensioners' dollars or their, employees' dollars if it's in a defined, benefit plan. Or so first and foremost, and here, the other thing is they have a lot of options. We have 800 and something other mutual funds in our asset class. So there's other options. So reputational risk is the first thing that we consider. And we kind of deal with reputational risk with the culture. Again, coming in exactly what the expectation is. What our expectation is of you and how you conduct yourself, and that goes from the CEO all the way down to the people you see when you walk in the door. So we kind of deal with that reputational risk, again, by culture. The others that really matter to us a lot, we first define risk as permanent loss of capital. It's kind of an investment term, but what that means is we lose all your money. That's a problem. So there are lots of risks, but for us, again, that's our business, that's our brand. So again, we instill so many checks and balances along the way when we make investments that we don't have any permanent loss of capital. The funniest thing is, the number one thing is, we're okay walking away. Everybody feels like they have to own something or be in something. We call it the Noah's Ark of investing, where you have two of everything. We don't do that at all. We're actually very concentrated. We make very few investments. And to some, they say, well, you haven't spread out your risk, so that's risky in itself. I said, well, not exactly. It means we have less children to watch after. and we can spend more time on those children. So we actually feel like our risk management is in better shape than worse shape. So those are the things that we think about in terms of risk the most. And then the business risk itself, which is, it's evolved at Ariel over time. Having, such a well-known and thoughtful, big sort of personality leader in John Rogers, who started the firm, that worked great, for so many years. We got to a point where we said, that's kind of putting the business at risk. So we diversified in terms of product and decision maker. At a point in time, it was just John's products, and he was the decision maker. And he's brilliant and has a great track record, but that works until it doesn't work. So we diversified our business risk by doing those things.
Thank you for that. We were talking about backstage briefly with Chancellor before we came out here, and Rob alluded to it a little while ago. So there have been a couple of interesting high-profile companies, financial services and airline, that have realized some ethical lapses and have paid a price that is still being calculated. And I guess the simple question is, whether it's Wells Fargo, whether it's United, how does that happen?
Yeah, I think I think it's always difficult when you're on the outside to know exactly. It's very easy to throw stones, typically when you see something go wrong. But what I would say is, when I see the reaction sometimes, which often is worse, right, than sometimes the issue itself, right, is how the company responds. We talk about that a lot as a leader, which is that, own your own mistake first, right? So even if you are only 5% at fault, and you have 95% other amazing, great reasons for why, you're not really at fault, just own your own problem first. And I think that's a great lesson for any leader, especially with your teams, right? If you've made a mistake, own that. And I think as a company, you have to be willing to do the same thing. And I think the more companies then start talking about other components of it, and the whys and the hows and the whos, instead of just saying you're sorry and letting that sit for a second with the consumer, I think that you wind up in trouble. And I joke backstage that I have found that is effective with my wife, right? So that if I've done something wrong, that it is much more successful for me to just apologize. If I keep talking, somehow that benefit of the apology dissipates, and we are right back like 5 minutes later into an argument. But if I can actually just sit with, yes, I did this wrong and I'm sorry, actually that has a huge impact. But I think it's human nature. I'm not, because we see it everywhere. There's this desire to explain and discuss, and rather than just say, yes, we screwed this up.
I think part of it is when directives get out of balance within an organization, unethical behavior can creep in. So, as an example, in our divisions and our functions, they don't have profit targets. We decide the best levers that, if they pull and meet, will result in profitability. So to us, profit isn't a goal. It's a way that we measure if we've made good decisions. And as a result of that, we drive unethical behavior out. And with this culture that is based on respect and Kaizen, people that don't share that, they don't last very long. Right. They're really outliers, and they're not comfortable in the organization. And as a result, they move out. It's really an organization based on teamwork. And if you don't kind of fit into that culture, you find yourself very out of place and uncomfortable, and you kind of self-select out. So to me, it's all about making sure you have the right balance.
How do those things happen? I have no idea. I accept that things will happen. I think first and foremost, you just have to know that these things will come along at points in time. And I work in a business where I don't control the market. So what we focus on is our inputs, for one. We think that's very important. You're doing your work up front. The outcomes will be what they're going to be. But the second thing is your reaction to it. It's how you react. We were talking to Jim, and we own Toyota in one of our portfolios, and we watched a lot of these really unforeseen events happen, within that organization, and clients, would look and say, well, what are you going to do about it? And we said, we've done our work, and this is a fantastic organization that we trust their judgment, we trust how they've run their business. That's our input, and how we reacted to it was, we ended up buying more of the company as, we were paid to take the risk at that point. So I think a lot of it is you got to focus on your inputs for one, because you can't necessarily control what happens sometimes along the way, and focus so much on how you react to what happens, because these things are going to happen. I don't know what would happen at Wells Fargo. I don't know what happened at United, but how they deal with it, will be the marker of how people look at you, and how they deal with you. So we kept our investment in Toyota, and
Thank you very much.
it ended up being a fantastic, payoff for our shareholders. And again, that's the most important thing for us. But our inputs were there, and then our reaction was commensurate with how we felt about the organization. And I think that that you can do that with anything. Trying to think that you can control these things, bad things are going to happen. You're going to have, you're going to have warm winters.
No.
It's going to happen.
No, maybe.
So I think having faith in your inputs and the work that you've done, and focus on how you react to it is just it's key, and that's how you'll be judged.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is you just can't lose sight of your customer.
Right.
I mean, if you look at United and what happened, and it was a horrible thing, somebody lost sight of their customer. I don't care what the policy is. You should never have done what you've done. In the case of Wells, the same thing. You kind of you got greed get in the way of what was good common sense on what you should do with customers.
Right. In the time we have left, I got a couple of questions. One, I wanted to ask you about the unprecedented amount of data and information available by just order of magnitude in comparison to just 10, 15 years ago, that has fundamentally altered the B2C relationship. And Gary, give us a sense of just how that affects your operation and your life as an SVP at Ariel.
Yeah, I touched on it already, so I'll be brief in this one. I think that there's a lot of information, but so little of it matters. And you've got to block out the noise from what actually matters, and you've got to get your people to focus on what's most important. So that's how we deal with information flow. We don't think that information equates to intelligence. We don't think that collecting information is the same thing as connecting information, and we want intelligence and connectors. So for us, the information flow, it is what it is. It used to be a source of alpha. When Rob was at Apollo, information was a source of alpha. Today, everybody has it at their fingertip. It's not what's going to make you better. It's not what's going to add alpha to your clients. So we try to focus on what actually matters and block the rest of the noise out.
Yeah, I would actually, I agree with that. And I think one of the things we've seen, so the ski industry, has historically not been a data intensive industry. It's an industry where you get people to come to the resort by passion and putting pictures or videos up that get people really motivated to come to the resort. There wasn't really a lot of collection of data. And so we said, hey, listen, we're in a business. The bad news is that not everyone in this country skis. Not everyone in the world skis. The good news is that there are some fairly high income folks who are passionate about skiing. And so we felt like the way for us to succeed was actually to figure out who those were and entice them through personalized messages to come. But one of the things that we found out, exactly as you're saying, is so we started collecting the data, and then actually the question was, well, what do you make of this? And that's not so simple. And actually, the whole company was not oriented around making sense of the data. So all of a sudden, we just had a bunch of data, and yeah, we could put it up in graphs and PowerPoints and things like that, but it wasn't clear that we were actually making good decisions from that. And it took us, I would say, 3-4 years of trial and error to actually figure out, oh, wait a minute, no, this is what this data means. And it was definitely, I think there is this myth that, big data, you just collect it and poof, you have a computer program and it spits out every decision that you need to make. And actually, it is painstaking. And one of the issues for us actually is, our main winter business only operates 4 months out of the year. And so we kind of talk about it like we operate in dog years. So for us to get, 12 months of test and learn takes 3 years because we only do it for 4 months. So I would agree. I think that is, now I do think though, you have to put the time and effort. This is where the future is. I do think that it is not just collecting it, but it is people who can make sense and sort that data that I think will absolutely be the winners, over the next couple of decades, because they will get a jump start on other people who may not focus on the information and put the time and effort in.
I mean, in our case, it's all about how do you create loyal customers. Data's part of that. How we speak to our customers, how we communicate. We're a company that spends in excess of $1 billion a year in advertising cost, and about 30% of that budget we allocate to experiments. So if you go back 20 years, we were in traditional media. We put about 30% of that budget into digital media, and we were one of the first automotives to really get into digital. Then we've got digital and traditional. Now we put 30% into social media. Now we have those platforms kind of going quite well. But we need to find a way to really personalize the message and use the data with customers. So we created a company about a year ago called Toyota Connected. And basically it is an onboard data collection module in a car, because the good news is our customers are in cars. We know where they are to be able to communicate with them. They can't go very far.
Yeah, right. Something to remember.
So, yeah, that's true. So what we'll be able to do with this big data company that we've created is, let's say that you have your navigation set and you're driving to lunch, and there's a big accident, and your system knows you're going to be 30 minutes late. With this data connection that we have, the system will come on and say, you're going to be late for lunch. Can we make an appointment for you at your favorite restaurant? It can look at your calendar. If you're late for a meeting, it can actually know that you're late, contact the people that are coordinating that meeting, and ask you if you want to reschedule the meeting or if you want to take it by phone from your car. So all of that information is coming. That's the benefit of big data, because it's all about making people's lives easier. And that's how we will build loyalty over the long run.
Great. Thank you. Last question for you all before we open it up to our audience. And Gary, I'm going to ask you to start. So I'm going to ask you all to speak to our students and young professionals in the audience. Give them some advice to maximize success and impact and satisfaction in the future. Takeaways, skill sets, things that they need to be thinking about, things they need to learn. What's your take on that, Gary?
I have the pleasure of speaking at my alma mater, University of Maryland, on a regular basis, and there's really 3 things that I always try to impart on the students there, and I'll try to get through all 3 quickly. Dean Chrite, the first is learn how to be competitive. And that sounds kind of crazy because most people have grown up maybe playing competitive sports or whatever it was that you're into. When you get in the field, whatever that field may be, what it takes to be very good is typically different than what you're used to doing. So when I talk to students and I say that, they say, well, I know how to compete already. And I say, well, Gladwell would say that you need to put in 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. Kind of eyes get big. I'm not saying everybody has to be an expert at something, but that's what it takes to actually be competitive. And it's just a different set. Competitive also means when you get in the field, it's a long game, not a short game. So you're not competing, to do well in this exam and then you're done with it. You're competing for a series of positions that will tie into a long career. And that's a very thoughtful, kind of slow game. It's just a different set of competitions, first thing. Second thing is I say you got to network spherically. Right, we're typically used to networking with those right next to us, right? It's people that are in the same, business that you are, you went to class with them, whatever it may be. I've learned as a professional that, my closest friends are not those that work in investments. I have a lot of great friends in government, friends in, nonprofit. And what it does, it kind of broadens your reach in a way that you didn't even know was, broadening. Plus, you're used to being mentored, so it's sort of a vertical relationship. well, you'll do that when you get in the field, but you should also mentor down, you should mentor sideways. So that's what I mean by spherically, and that takes a little while to set in, but you start to see these relationships come to fruition in the times that you least expected it. They kind of appear, and you think to yourself, wow, well, I know a alderman, or I know a head of a nonprofit, or whatever it may be, that can help you in ways that you just didn't imagine. So spherically, which I think is very important. And the last thing is, it's so novel, but it's so important, is learn how to be a good teammate. We work in this sort of me environment, and you should want to be very good, but not at the detriment of somebody else. As a matter of fact, it will benefit you if you can make those around you better. I always say in tough times, you will be the first one in and the last one out. If people know you're a team player. And again, it sounds kind of childish, I talk to my kids, be a teammate, but when you get in the real world, people want to be around teammates and winners. And I think those things are just very, very important. And they get lost in translation sometimes of all the work you've done and your focus on your job and all those things. Just be a good teammate. It will come back in spades in ways you hadn't thought of yet. So it's really those three things: is learn how to be a real competitor, network spherically, and be a good teammate.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I would say probably the thing that I think is most important, that I think I see people miss, especially people maybe just graduating from college or an MBA. Sometimes people ask to talk to me about what job they should take or where they should go, and very often all I hear about is this kind of career path. Oh, well, if I do this, then that, is this firm better than that firm, is this? And I always tell people, it's like, what, just enjoy the job. And in the end, I think one of the things that gets lost, I think for an athlete, using that analogy, you tell people, like, enjoy the game. Yeah, try hard and get to the outcome, but it can't be about the outcome. Right? It's just not possible that you're always going to win. It's not possible that you'll always get that success. And if that's all you're focused on and you really don't enjoy the game, yeah, just do something else that you do enjoy. I think, and I do find that, you've got to, it's a little paradoxical, I think, but yeah, it's the people who look, right, most at ease, like at the plate in baseball, who, yeah, they have the best outcome. If you're trying so hard to hit a home run, you're trying so hard to get a hit, you're thinking about your averages, you're thinking about where you rank, yeah, all of a sudden you're not batting. You're not, going to do your best when you're up at the plate. And so kind of being in that flow or in the zone, which we talk about with athletics, I think has a lot of relevance in the workplace. And I do see sometimes people who are so focused on that outcome, it's a little bit like what you were talking about with profit. It's like, yeah, the profit will come, that outcome will come, your promotion or your next step or your salary, it'll come, but don't make it about that. Make it actually enjoy what you're doing every day. Enjoy kind of that journey. And I would say also, as you go through your career, you're going to have, we try and have everybody in our company be a great boss, but you're not going to have great bosses every day, and every company's not going to be great. And wherever you work, you're going to have a list of complaints. Right, of all the problems that are there. And you know what, they're very real, and you should raise them in the appropriate way, and hopefully those companies or your bosses or your teammates will change. But don't become a victim to that. Right? Take control of your career. Feel like you have ownership to be able to drive your own success, and don't get caught up in this, oh, well, if only the company did this, if only my boss did that. That, when I hear that, I know immediately that's not somebody who's a long-term winner. Because guess what? Not everything goes your way. I know the three of us could all agree on that. As you were saying earlier, it's like you're going to have problems, lots of issues, right? Success does not come in one straight line. So yeah, those are the two pieces of advice I usually give to folks.
Great, thank you.
Kind of continuing on that point I've been successful because I'm a problem solver and not a critic. The last thing I want to do is sit in a meeting and have somebody complain about a decision. That's great. Give me 3 better ideas. Exactly. That's the important part. Same thing. If all you do is complain about stuff, just come up with different ideas. That's what we're here to hear. The other piece is, and I mentioned before, and that's really manage projects and manage them well, but lead people. And there's a huge difference between those two things. Take the time to explain why things are important, what value it adds, and you'll have people engaged much more. And I think, to me, the most important part is know who you are. Know what your values are. What is it that makes a difference to you? In your core, what is it that's important? Do you want to be with a company that prides itself on teamwork? Or do you want to be in a company that's all about the individual? That's important to know, because you will be successful in any company that you're in. You're all bright. You've had a great education. But to be successful and to be happy is the most important part. And I found that in my career. I worked for a company. I was very successful. I loved the people. I loved what I was doing. But I wasn't really happy. And I was lucky enough to leave that company and go to Toyota. And I was lucky. I wasn't looking for it because, frankly, I didn't know what my core was all about. I didn't know what my North Star really was until one day there was a crisis and I was almost fired at Toyota. And I was put in a position to have to decide, do I want to change who I am or do I want to stay with this company? And I told my manager at the time, you don't have great managers every time, that I'm not going to change. Well, in time, I became the CEO and he's no longer in the company. So, but it's really important, because if you can align your core values with the core values of a company, you're going to be successful and you're going to be happy. And to me, that's what it's all about.
Thank you very much for that, Jim. And thank you all. We're going to get to your questions in a minute. But first, please just join me in thanking this panel for their really extraordinary insight. There are mics on either end, so sure, come on up. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, no, I meant to the mic. Sorry.
Well, there is another
Well, you can sit right
Yeah,
here.
right over there. But you know.
Didn't need the bright lights that much. So thank you all three of the panelists, and first of all, I want to say to Gary, thank you for inspiring us about taking the long view. I will make the connection, however, between your alma mater and your current logo, which is the Terrapin.
You know, I typically throw that in and say I've actually had a turtle as a mascot twice in my life. And I've got to be the only guy that's ever happened to.
I mean, here we are in Colorado. We don't have a lot of turtles. I want to, Rob, I want to pick up on something that I know is a bigger risk, and that is climate. And how do you get your arms around something that is completely external? And I've grown up born and raised in Colorado. My parents and grandparents are from here, and I've never seen, first of all, so much traffic going up and down I-70. We've seen the pine beetle kill, and then we start to see the seasons change. And as a travel company, as a destination company, it's not just about what happens on the slopes, and I will say it, Vail is the best mountain in the world, and I absolutely love it. I want to make sure that my kids, that my 3 kids and their kids and their kids and their kids are also able to enjoy that incredible luxury. And so I guess my question is, how do you impart a leadership role, not just among your employees and perhaps the current customers that you have, but how does Vail have a role to play that's larger? And perhaps, Jim, you can pick up on this as well. And in a world that has so many changes coming at us, and climate is just one of them, but how would you respond to that?
Yeah, no, I think, I do get asked often, in communities by investors, what do I think about climate change? Is that something that I'm worried about? And I say, absolutely. And it's as a father, right? It's as somebody who lives on this planet and would like to think that this is, not something that's somehow going to come to a close in the next couple of generations. And so, what I would say is I think my personal first responsibility, and I think our company's first responsibility, is doing our part to protect the environment, not about skiing. I think it is that's a separate thing, but I would say it is because, we value this environment and our planet so deeply. And what we've done on that front is mainly about reducing our energy use. And so we set out actually in 2009 to reduce our energy use by 10%. Energy, electricity, diesel, natural gas, all of it. And we accomplished that, and then we set another goal to hit another 10% reduction by 2020, and we're about at 6% of that 10%, so about 16% reduction. And I think reducing your carbon footprint is in our minds the biggest single thing we can do to kind of lead by example. The other piece is obviously to help promote renewable energy uses, and so going here in Colorado, in Utah, in California, right, going and being one of the advocates for shifting, right, how we generate electricity in all of these states. I think for skiing, right, in particular, it's weather variability. So, right, what you have, it's not just warming, because right now, as we all know, it's snowing, right, up in Vail, but 3 weeks ago it was 70 degrees, and 3 weeks before that it was 10 degrees, and 3 weeks before that, and so our company has to get both strategically and operationally adjusted to wide variations in conditions for our guests. And that means, one, yes, making sure that the experience is not just about the snow. And most of our guests that come in from around the world, the snow is one piece of it, their experience on the snow, but it's all these other pieces. So making sure we've got retail and dining and other experiences, spa, all the different things that we do in these towns to make sure that they're vibrant. Two is, right, to our season pass program, which many people here certainly would be aware of, where we're pre-selling skiing for the year up front at a huge discount. And what that's done is given our guests a terrific value, and it's also given us, we have, right, push some of that risk out the door, because now people are locked in for that full season, and even their mindset changes when they know that they've bought a whole season worth of skiing. So if they go out for one particular day and it's not great, well, that's okay, because actually they know that they can come back. And so, I think this, for us, we feel like our company, that agility concept that I talked about earlier, we feel like we live that every day, right? The conditions on that mountain change radically. And the truth is our financial results are not just tied to snow. Over Christmas week, we're much better off having sun every day, right? Where people love to come out and get up on the hill, even if there's no powder, so that's, in our minds, there's kind of these two things: doing our part for the environment and being a responsible corporate citizen, and then, making sure our business is set up to handle, whatever kind of gets thrown at us. I-70 is a longer, different answer. We'll save that for another one.
So in our case, we have an initiative that we call Environmental Challenge 2050. And that is by 2050, Toyota will be responsible for zero carbon. That's from our cars, that's from our plants, that's from everything we do. So, and obviously you can't wait until 2045 to make that happen. So today, if you look at this new campus that we're building in Texas, 25% of our energy will come from solar arrays. It's the largest solar array of a non-utility in the state of Texas. The other 75% comes from wind-generated electricity from Texas wind farms. It's also been constructed that when it's feasible, it will all go to hydrogen. Our campus in Torrance, California, about half of our electricity came from a large hydrogen fuel cell. We have a plant in Japan that is just starting a hydrogen gas turbine system to see what the durability is like, to see if that can eventually be put into all of our plants. So we're doing that on the manufacturing side. On the vehicle side, if you look at hybrids, we've sold 10 million hybrids globally. Those 10 million hybrids have saved 8 billion gallons of gasoline. And I don't know how many thousands of tons of CO2, but it's enormous. And then the move that we're making now to fuel cells. That's all part of our vision to be able to eliminate that. And I think we'll be able to go beyond that. There's there's a billboard campaign that we have going on right now, where we have billboards that we're putting up, and the vinyl is treated with a chemical that actually takes carbon out of the air. So at some point in time, I think vehicles on the road will actually eat carbon and remove carbon from the air as they're on the road. So, you know, those are the kind of visions that we have as a company, because we know to have this industry be sustainable, we have to reduce not only the carbon footprint, but also clean water and everything else about the environment.
Thank you both.
One
Over here.
last question.
So we've talked a little bit earlier about consumer perception and things that happened with United, and actually United came out with an email this afternoon that said actions speak louder than words. My question, Rob, is really for you. There's an organization called Colorado Ski Country USA, and Vail Resorts doesn't participate in it. You know, I get emails. I'm just curious why. And I mean, I talk to people and they think, oh, Vail's too stuck up to participate in that organization. And by the way, I used to be a part-time ski instructor at Vail, so.
This is the problem with being a hometown company here.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say, you know, I think that decision around our collaboration with Colorado Ski Country was about marketing. And a lot of what I was just sharing earlier about how our company is going to market was different than what Colorado Ski Country, and this is now going back about 10 years or 9 years, what they wanted, you know, where they wanted to go with their efforts and with their strategies. And so we felt like what we thought Colorado Ski Country should be was a industry advocacy group, much like the NSAA, you know, National Ski Areas Association, which I'm sure you're aware of. Not necessarily a marketing, right, collaborative when you have all these different big companies that, yeah, it's hard actually to get them all to agree, and obviously they're all competing. And so we came to them and said, listen, we really wanted this to be an industry association, not necessarily a marketing organization. And I would say that this also, yeah, and they, I think some of the other resorts that were here didn't agree. And so we ultimately, you know, decided to part ways. And but what I would say, though, is we have an incredibly close working relationship with Colorado Ski Country, and we absolutely collaborate on so many different initiatives across the state, including many of the programs that build right, skier enthusiasm from an early age. They have their programs that give free skiing to you know, 5th graders. We introduced our Epic School Kids program in Colorado, which gives free skiing to K through 5. And so what I'd say is I don't think the state or the industry is really losing anything from the fact that because we don't happen to be in the same organization. I would like to think at some point that, yeah, certainly we could come back and do that. But it's a little different. I think that, you know, I think it's important for companies to make choices and own those choices. And I don't know that I'd put that in the same category as what happened with United, but but yeah, it is, you know, I think, because it's also important that, I think just for any leader, you've got to, you know, there's a time to compete, a time to collaborate, a time to work together, a time to go your separate ways. And I think all of those are okay, and part of a kind of holistic, you know, very often very successful environment for everybody. And the Colorado ski industry, I think, has done amazingly well over the last 8 to 9 years. And, you know, I think we feel proud of that track record as a whole.
Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. Oh, okay. All right, one more quick question, and then we gotta end it. Sorry.
I'll make it quick. Purnima Voria, National U.S. India Chamber of Commerce, a proud owner of Lexus RX 350, a gift from my daughter who goes to Daniels College of Business. So great job of educating my children.
Appreciate that.
I want to know about your short-term plans. I know you just embarked luxury brand of Lexus into India. So I would like to know your immediate plans with India. And the Vail CEO, I've always been thinking 350 million Indians, young Indians, under the age of 30. Why aren't you marketing Vail to India? These are billionaires that want to come and enjoy. And also, Vail is looking for your, India is looking for your expertise of creating the same kind of resorts in India, which is the #1 tourist destination in the world. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. So I'm not responsible for India, but I'll tell you what I do know about the company's efforts. As we look at the world, we kind of divide the world up into mature markets and developing markets. And in the past, probably 65–70% of our resource went to mature markets. So that's the engineering resource to develop new cars, new engines, new everything. That has shifted over the last 10 years to where it's about 50-50. And a lot of that resource is going into India because it is going to be, China is going to be the world's largest car market. India will likely be #2 or #3. So from a standpoint of brands, more products, more dealership representation, more manufacturing, India is definitely a very, very important part of Toyota and Lexus' future.
Yeah, and I think for Vail, I would say two pieces. One, yeah, I think we do need to do a better job of reaching out to bringing the Indian consumer into our resorts, in North America. And I think that's a market, it's a huge market along China as well, right? Both of those markets, when we look out over the next 10 to 20 years, it is by far the most significant area of growth. And I would say, we're probably a little bit behind the curve. Maybe our size, just in terms of resources and priorities, but it is absolutely out there as one of the top things that we have to, accomplish. On expanding into India in terms of actually creating resorts, at the moment we're in the United States. We just went into Australia a couple of years ago, just went into Canada last year. So, we're a bit of a small company and we're slowly kind of growing onto the kind of global, stage. And absolutely China, India, other parts of Asia and Europe are very much on our horizon. I would say one of the things that we pride ourselves on is not trying to do too much either, and ensure that whatever steps we're taking, we know we can execute well. But there's no doubt that India and China are both the future for travel, around the world. Oh, expertise. Yeah, and I think that's a conversation we'd absolutely love to have.
So, Gary, Rob, Jim, thank you once again for your incredible insights. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you coming out. Let me just very quickly thank my incredible staff for managing the last couple of days down here. Amy, Lori, Jaleesa, Gloria, Katie, I'm probably missing some. Thank you all. Appreciate you being here and hope you found this dialogue as stimulating as I did. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. All right. Well done, man. Thank you.